of you badass realtors out there, not just surviving, but thriving. I love it. We are continuing this morning with Rory Vaden's book, Take the Stairs, 7 Steps to Achieving Success. And we are now on chapter number 5, which is schedule. And it is the harvest principle. And I don't know about you guys, but I do want a big harvest in my life and in my business. And so I first just want to fill your buckets for being on schedule and showing up for huddle today, for pressing in, for mastering and winning your morning. That's what it takes, guys, to win our weeks, our months, and our lives. So I'm going to turn it over to Seth today for chapter numero 5.
Cinco. Oh,
Cinco.
I thought we were going with a thing. Good morning, everybody. Candidly, you must have read my mind because I played that song in my car last night, and I thought, man, this would make a great huddle song. Like that happened fewer than 12 hours ago. Alyssa, my 11-year-old, got shots in one shot in either arm yesterday, getting ready for athletics, and so we needed some dancing music to get her arms pumping. You know, if you get a vaccine and you move your muscles, it's less sore the next day. Anyhow, I digress. Schedule, the harvest principle. Y'all, this is a really cool chapter, and so much of it is going to sound familiar if you've read The One Thing. If you are a subscriber to Gary Keller and his mindset and his teachings, this will land right with you. I want to start off with the beginning of the book, or the beginning of the chapter. It says, do you know how many hours the average farmer works per day during harvest season? Somebody take yourself off mute. Just give me a guess. Anybody? How many average hours a day does a farmer work? Look
18 hours a day.
Look at, somebody has read this. Kirsty has. Yvonne, have you read this? Okay, so it is 18 hours a day. 18. Y'all, those are long hours. Now, there's somebody here who's like, well, I'm a realtor. 18 is nothing. 18 is a Tuesday, right? And that may be true for some of y'all. And for some of you, that has stretched your capacity. You're like, I left the job where I worked 18 hours a day so I could pursue freedom. And while that is a really important thing to have freedom in our life, it's a matter of like, what are we gaining freedom from? And actually, are we doing the things that are required so we can create freedom everywhere in our lives? Because if we're pursuing freedom to escape something, that's not really freedom, because we're still subject to the thing that we are escaping. And yet a farmer knows that he's got a short window each year where he can harvest everything that he's put into, everything he's invested into in the entire year. He's got this little window. And so for a farmer, there aren't enough hours in the day. But it's not because it's just tiresome. It's because there is such a bountiful crop. He wants to bring it all in. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I feel like this is a really bountiful season. And I think it depends on the mindset that we approach it with, right? Are we approach it with scarcity? Well, there are all these changes, and I'm subject to all these things and all the rest. A farmer could think, oh, I only have 2 months to do all of this, and I only have 24 hours in the day, and I need to sleep and all of that. He says, you know what? I'm going to build my schedule so that I can spend all the days in the appropriate time, doing the appropriate things with all the hours that I have available, so I can reap the absolute biggest reward. Rory says, it doesn't matter if the farmer would rather work 18 hours a day at some other time of the year, because the harvest is when the harvest is. Do we get to decide when the harvest season comes in real estate? I would say not. Now, we can choose to plant during a certain season and know that it's going to grow and bear fruit at another season. And yet sometimes the harvest just is when the harvest is, and it requires that we get up and go. He talks about the myths of time management. It makes me think so much about The One Thing. He says, with an infinite number of options vying for our attention, just deciding how best to spend our time and fit everything in is a major cause of stress today. The simple take the stairs solution to the problem is not doing everything that we can do in a day, but rather doing everything we should do. Or as Gary and Jay would say, everything we must do in a day. How do we get from could do to should do to absolutely must? What are the critical few things that we absolutely must do? Balance shouldn't, so he talks about balance. And balance, so many of us think balance means equal in opposite directions, right? It means this is equal to this, and it all weighs out on the scale. But here's the truth. Different things weigh different amounts. Can we agree on that? Like the density of your family time, the density of your lead generation time is different than the density of creating your social media profile. And so we can spend equal time in all directions, and yet that's going to create a lot of imbalance in our lives. If we wish to create balance in our lives, it's so critical that we understand the weight and density of the importance of all the things that we could do. So we can focus on those things that are most dense, spend the right amount of time, that maybe just a little bit of time every single day, making sure that they're in balance with everything else. He talks about it's not about enough, but it's about when. Right? If a farmer spends 18 hours a day in the field during the winter season, is he going to bear fruit, more fruit? Is he going to have a better harvest, a better crop, better yield? No. Instead of asking ourselves, how can I fit more in? We should be asking, what season is my life in right now? When is the right time to be completing its associated activities? And what are the right things I need to do to maximize my harvest of this season? Focused effort is amplified by appropriate timing and regimented routine. So in the morning, what season is that? What is most beneficial for our day? In the afternoon, what season is that? When we're at home with our family in the evening, what season is that? And what is most beneficial during that season? If we study our day like seasons, or we study our week like it's seasons, we start to see patterns where our effort toward a certain area of our life shows up with overwhelming benefit. Instead of asking, how much can I get done today? We should be asking, what is the most effective thing I can be doing right now with the time I have available? This small shift can yield massive results. He goes into talking about double time, part-time for full-time free time. That's a tongue twister, right? Double time, part-time for full-time free time. What does that mean? That means that with the time we have available, how do we put forth double the effort in a small window of time so that later on we can earn all the time that we wish? It means that when you apply extreme discipline for a defined period of time, a season, you create freedom from the stress and worry that comes from typical performance. Double time, part-time sets up your life in a way that you make sacrifices for the short term to create long-term that is much more manageable. Is it not beneficial to all out build a database and serve those people so that they would in turn just bring come list me's your way? That's what double time, part-time for full-time free time looks like. Is it beneficial to work on a neighborhood for 3 years straight, hoping that someday it turns and people start coming your way in order to build a neighborhood farm that sees you as the expert and business just flows to you freely? That's double time, part-time for full-time free time. And we do this with our families too. Maybe you get 1 or 2 days a week where you get to spend really high quality time. Can you invest in your personal life and your relationships and your spiritual life with the 10 minutes a day you can set aside so that you can be filled and fulfilled the rest of the time that we spend elsewhere? The idea of being on schedule. I want to read real quick. He has 5 areas of life. I think most thought leaders have different areas of their life that they focus on building. And yet when Rory studies highly successful people, he sees that they have these 5 things in common. They focus on their faith. 10 minutes of inspirational reading, engage in some sort of spiritual practice, fellowship at least once a week. Family, have one weeknight dedicated to a private date night with a spouse or a child. Coincidentally, this is typically on Wednesdays. So if you need a starting point, you need to make it happen. Other people do it on Wednesdays. You can too. Fitness, some type of physical activity every day. I think, can I break a sweat today? And not because I'm nervous standing in front of y'all talking on a Tuesday morning, but can I go use my body to the point that it breaks a sweat at least once a day? And then can I spend at least 30 minutes of intense physical activity 3 times a week? Faculty, this is your career, this is your job. At least 1 interrupted night per week is what he says. What are the odd hours you normally wouldn't dedicate? And can you dedicate an unreasonable amount of time to what is most important, your job? Do you have a call night built into your business where you can follow up with the people at least once a week that you can't reach during business hours? And then your finances. He says, review all your up-to-date financial account balances every single Sunday night. He talks about so much more The idea of being on schedule is not showing up for what somebody else expects of you. The idea of being on schedule is not a matter of just following a calendar and I just need to pass the hours through the day and make sure I'm working during all these hours and then check out at the right time. Being on schedule is applying the right amount of effort during the right timing to the right activities. This is the concept of time blocking, and you can build it however you like. I want to give you some bonus content. This is a book from Tim Ferriss called Tools of Titans. He's interviewed like 80 different highly successful people on his podcast. He's actually interviewed way more than that, but these are the interviews that stood out. And I went to go see what do these geniuses have to say about being on schedule, about their timing. 2 people in the entire book out of 80 something reference schedule, reference timing. And it really surprised me when I started reading them. They reference the same thing. Noah Kagan is a serial entrepreneur. He was one of the first employees at Facebook, has gone on to do really great things. And he says, don't try and find time, schedule time. On Tuesdays from 10 to noon, Noah schedules nothing but learning. This is a great reminder that for anything important, you don't find time. It's only real if it's on the calendar. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. Right? We have another gentleman, Brian Koppelman. This guy has found massive success producing and directing and writing movies and TV shows and such. And what he has to say about a schedule is that you don't find time, you make time. Now, somebody's thinking, that's what you just said. It's because they said the same thing. Out of all these, the only people that mention schedule in here have the same thing to say. He was working a full-time job and he wanted to write a movie with his best friend. And he started studying poker and he said, you know what? We don't have time during our day, so let's just make it early morning. So he cleared out a storage space in a basement beneath his building, pushed cleaning products aside and swept the floor. There was room for one chair where his buddy sat at the laptop and he sat on the floor, but he spent 2 hours every single day studying and writing relentlessly. They had never connected with anybody in movie, film, Hollywood, nothing like that. They didn't have writing partners or buddies, but they knew it was important to them. So they made time. It was early in the morning, like 5 a.m. every single morning, 2 hours. They took Sundays off. Khaled Hosseini, this is the author of The Kite Runner. Incredible book, by the way. In the early mornings before working as a full-time doctor, he wrote The Kite Runner. Paul Levesque often works out at midnight. We'll wrap it up with this. If it's truly important, schedule it. As Paul might ask you, is that a dream or a goal? If it isn't on the calendar, it isn't real. So what are you planting and when is the time to harvest? Is it on your calendar and are you doing it today? Teresa, this is what I've got. It's back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth. Okay, I have a few announcements and then we're going to roll over to our Q&A session for all of the new forms and contracts. But I want to give you guys a couple of announcements. And I want to preface it with this mindset. Business goes on besides new forms and contracts. And so as we're talking about schedule and we're talking about focus, I want to encourage everybody that you have seeds to plant in your business right now that are going to need to be harvested in the next 3 months, and do not let your foot off the gas doing the activities that you need to do. Yes, it might mean you're a little busier than normal. It might mean that it's a little bit more stressful. Your day is a little more packed. Things take a little longer right now just because we're learning and doing new things, having to think a little bit harder about our conversations. And I'm going to implore you, because I want you to have a rich and wealthy Christmas, that you are overflowing with abundance. Plant your seeds now. Do not stop lead generating. Do not stop doing the activities that are going to feed you and your family. So I implore you with that. So on Wednesday, tomorrow, we have partners meeting at 11. I hope you all will join us in the training room. We are going to be talking mega camp ahas. So agents that attended are going to bring back their notes, give you their favorite things that they took away and learned, and specifically what they're going to be implementing. coming off of that. And so if you didn't get to attend Mega Camp, it's the next best way to get some of the gold. And if you did attend, please show up so that we have ahas to share, because otherwise it's kind of lame if, there's no ahas. So. And then we have Investor Club on Thursday. Always a great time to talk about. We've spent a lot of time focusing on building our revenue, but this is our opportunity to really have a wealth building mindset to where we're focused not just on making money, but on building long-term wealth for our families. That's happening on Thursday. If you will RSVP for that, there is a link to do so. And then if you have done in 2023 over $8 million in production, Shannon Steer and Go Coaching will be in our market center on Friday for invite only masterminds. And then if you're 20 million and above, you will be in the elite group. You all should have received text messages and emails, invitations on that. If you feel like you qualified, but you didn't get notified, please let us know. And we'll make sure that you're getting they're sending it out. So we'll make sure that they're sending it to the right people. Okay. All right. So thank you guys for being on, 80 of you with lots of questions about all of these forms. And Janice is going to host us today. My word of advice to everybody as we go into just embracing this new way is that you embrace it and don't fight it. I think Janice would probably agree with this. One of the number one questions that we get are questions regarding how do I get around this? How do I make it the same as it's always been, as opposed to embracing it? And I will tell you, if we come from an attitude of embracing it as a new normal, as a new way of doing things and looking for the opportunity, it's going to click a little bit faster, I think, as we go through this. So I would just encourage you to adopt a mentality of embracing and not resisting and fighting it. And Janice, if y'all will just give her so much love. She is working so hard at fielding all of your questions. We're so blessed, Janice. We love and adore you. Thank you for being a leader on this. And I'm going to turn it over to you and turn it over to the floor.